Okay, here we are, Bonneville Salt Flats, August 11th, 2019. I have in front of me here Mr. Peter Phillipps. How you doing today, Pete?
I'm doing very well, Dwight. Doing very good.
Why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Dwight, I live down in a country called Vanuatu, all the way down the southwest Pacific. Run a water sports and scuba diving and a commercial dive operation down there. Probably more about what the backstory as far as Bonneville goes. Spent 10 years riding motorcycles professionally on dirt track speedway in various tracks in Australia when I was about half the age I am now, or less, and did that for a lot of years. Then from there went on to race superbikes, a lot of road race sidecar, speedway, long track, all sorts of things. Then got too old for it all and moved on more into business life. Had a Harley business in Australia for a number of years in Melbourne. That's still going today, but I sold out to my partner there. Then I packed up and went to Vanuatu and, as mentioned, started my water sports business. Didn't have much to do with motorcycling for a lot of those years. Had a Harley or two in the shed and I'd go for a ride around the island with my mates and things like that, but been pretty well away from the racing scene for a lot of years.
Sounds like you've had an interesting time. So you're a long ways from home. How did you get to race at Bonneville and meet Mr. Fritz Klingler, California Fritz?
Yeah, that's a good one, Dwight. I'd been to, about 6 years ago, I went to the Isle of Man to watch the TT over there, and then I was sort of ticking things off the bucket list, and I decided I wanted to come to Bonneville. And turns out a friend of mine in Vanuatu, Howard Hughes, is a good mate of California Fritz. They belong to the same motorcycle club and so forth. So when Howard found that I was coming to Bonneville, he gave me Fritz's phone number and said, well, you might want to ring this guy and catch up with him while you're over there. So I even rang him before I left Vanuatu, and turns out my brother decided to come with me and his son, young son Jack. Jack was about 10, I think, at the time, and so we jumped in a plane in Vanuatu, flew to LA, jumped in a motorhome, got up here as quickly as we could, just to have Fritz ring me as we're coming between Salt Lake City and Wendover. We were nearly into Wendover, and he rang and said, the officials have called the meeting off due to it been raining and there was about a foot of water across the salt. So that was all a bit devastating, and as it turns out, we met up with Fritz and his crew chief at that stage, Willie Johnson, behind one of the casinos in town. We had a couple of cool beers and sort of spent the night there, and I think the next day tinky touring around looking at all the race cars and everything, because we're all just in the same boat. But out of that, we ended up back at Fritz's place in California and got the motorcycles out of the shed and went touring for a couple of days. We had a great old time. Hence Fritz and I become very good mates. So when Bonneville didn't run then for a couple of years, just due to bad weather conditions, and 3 years ago Fritz decided he was going to come back out on the salt and invited myself along to be his crew chief, which I did come along and the salt was atrocious that year and pretty hard to sort of get any speed. And I think Fritz ran 157 or 159 mile an hour or something, way off the record. But towards the end of the week he said, would I like a ride on the bike? I said, I'd love to. So squeezed into his leathers. His legs are about 6 inches shorter than mine. I got into the leathers, and unbeknown to the officials, and I hope that none of them ever watch this video, I jumped on and I made a pass as Californian Fritz. And I'd never really sat on the bike before, but anyway, I turned 155 mile an hour and Fritz was quite blown away. So, keep a long story short, I came back over for a holiday, did a bit of touring around on my motorcycle here, and I think my wife was with me, and Fritz said, would you like to run the bike at Bonneville with him as technical support? I said, I'd love to. So we set the bike up, this very same bike as I'm going to ride this Speed Week, but we had a body on it, partial streamliner class, and I turned up here, no licence. So to qualify for a licence, you got to start out as a rookie. So from there we go do a lot of orientation. They show you where you've got to pull off the track and so forth. Then you've got to make in my case, we had to make 3 passes. Your first pass can't be over 125 mile an hour. Your second pass can't be over 150. And because we were shooting for a 180 odd mile an hour record, I had to get my 175 mile an hour license, which is, I think, my D license, I think it is. Anyway, we knocked them off successfully in the first couple of days. So that entitled me to then go and have a shot for the record. So that's faster than this bike in this configuration has ever done before. So we're finding we're having big fuel starvation problems at about 175 mile an hour. We couldn't get any more than that out of it. So we lost a day messing around with that. And long story short, we changed a lot of the fuel bypass system and made some alterations. And I was just running the fuel pump on it at full pressure, handlebar switch. I was just turning the switch on and off manually just to make sure the carburetors are full of fuel. And I pulled off at the 4 mile, and I knew by the RPM we were pulling, it had been a pretty quick run. And Fritz and my brother jumped out of the chase vehicle, and they were ecstatic. And I knew it was going to be pretty good. And they informed me we'd just run 190 mile an hour, so way faster than this bike had ever done before, and it was more than 10 mile an hour over the existing record. So we're all pretty happy. So that, from there you go into impound. In impound they check the bike, measure it, make sure it's all compliant. You're allowed to refuel it, do a basic service, and the next morning at about 7:30 in the morning you've got to make your second pass. You've got to have 2 passes over the record to ratify the record. They take the average of the 2 speeds, which becomes the new record. I was a little off the next morning. I made a mistake. I didn't think I was going fast enough when I was travelling through the 3 miles. So I had another tap on the gear lever thinking I had another gear to go, and I was actually in top gear. But you get that tunnel vision, it just didn't seem like fast enough. So I probably lost a mile an hour or 2 there. So we end up running 188.5 mile an hour on the second run. So the new record became 189.5 mile an hour, and that still
awesome.
stands. And I think it'll be a little while before someone knocks that off. But out of that,
Pretty amazing. So, what's your goal for this? What's your goal for this year, Pete? What are you hoping to accomplish?
yeah, well, for this year, we've taken the body off the. Excuse me, I'm a bit dry in the throat here. We've taken the body off the bike. We're running in the open class this year. We're looking to the existing record's 172.5 mile an hour. If we can pull 175 or better, I'm going to be a very happy man. Off to impound again.
Awesome, man. Hopefully that's going to happen as well. What do you think lies beyond in the future for you after Bonneville this year?
Yeah, good question. This salt gets into your blood, and it's a sport us old blokes can still do to a certain degree. Fritz and I have been talking. We believe this bike potentially could do 200 mile an hour in a partial streamline configuration. So Fritz, being the wizard and genius he is of design and engineering, we have been talking about a better aerodynamic body than what we've been using. The one we've been using was created by Fritz himself in the shed, and it's a bloody good carbon fibre body. And I was amazed last year how that thing just ran like an arrow. It was as straight as a die. Where Fritz learning that, the knowledge that he has now, that threw him on the ground a couple of times, as we well know. And but we've got it pretty perfected now. You've probably seen some of my other videos where we talk about how the bike should be balanced and everything to run on the salt. But yeah, Dwight, I'd probably like another thing on that bucket list, 200 mile an hour.
That'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah. So looking at the moment, we're sitting here, we're in day 2 of out on the salt here. It is drying up. It was underwater when you and I arrived here a couple of days ago, but now it's coming good again, and I think it's looking very, very good. We're going to have a great speed week, and I think a lot of records are going to fall. Fritz just arrived behind us here. His bodywork's probably just about here. He's in very good stead too. I reckon he's going to knock another record on the head as well.
Good deal. Well, hoping to see you in Impound. I think that's going to happen sometime in the next day or two.
Thank you very much, Dwight.
Well, have a great day and good luck with you.
Yep. See you all later. Bye.